You know, life sometimes as a speedway rider is difficult. And today we're going to talk about a speedway warrior who had a rather hard time in his life, and he had a very difficult ending.
I'm going to like a motorboat at Petunia.
But first, if you like speedway, you enjoy racing, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking this show.
We're eating lunch.
He was born in Southern California in approximately 1951 or 1952. He grew up in Southern California. He had a house in Redondo Beach, one in the mountains in Big Bear. But he was an early day speedway rider, racing all the speedway tracks in the 1970s. And he was a fairly good rider. He could ride that speedway bike, and he was competitive. He had that desire as a speedway rider. And who was it? It was number 154. We call him Porky McCabe. Now, Porky, he raced all the D1, D2 tracks all over the place. And you know, Porky was a competitive racer. I know, because I raced Porky on numerous occasions.
That's all, folks.
I was only a young kid, a young punk, and Porky was like in his latter 20s when I met him. And I was always like, Porky's an old man. He's like 27 or 28 years old. Heck, I wish I was 27 or 28 years old. But Porky and we had a lot of competition against each other. And we never did really talk to each other very much. I was busy in the pits with my stuff, and he was busy with his stuff. But he gave me a few stare downs a few times, and I realized that Porky was probably not my best friend. To be honest with you, there's just some riders, and the riders can tell you that you just don't want them to beat you. And Porky was one of those guys. I just didn't want to beat me. And I did everything possible so Porky wouldn't beat me. One time, we're in a handicap race, and I have it on video. I just haven't been able to transfer it. I apologize it. But I'm going to keep trying to transfer that. I have it on a little DVD. But Porky was in the lead in a handicap race, and he was blocking me. He was riding a very strategic, very good race. However, he was a little bit slower, and he was really doing good to keep me from passing him. And it was about 3 laps or 4 laps into the handicap race. I got really frustrated because, you know, Porky really didn't beat me much, and he had that feistiness. You know, Porky was a sort of a tough rider, a tough guy. You know, he wasn't really friendly. He didn't smile. He just kind of had that look in his eye all the time. And it wasn't really, you know, happy. So I like to beat him just to make him unhappy. Like I say, we probably didn't jive very well. And I just didn't like Porky beating me. And actually, he never did. But this one time, he almost beat me. And it was about the 3rd or 4th lap. And I just got frustrated. And I said, you know what? I'm just going in on Porky, and I'm just going to, like, take it. And so I just drove in. It was on turn, like, 3. And I just, like, pushed him out. He didn't crash. I just totally pushed him out. And I took the lead, and I just, like, went, you know, ahead. And I had nobody stopping me at that point, and I had a pretty good-sized victory. But I could tell from that race, as hard as Porky, you know, rode to stop me, you know, he couldn't do it. But you know, I could tell he had that real heart of a racer. Also, another experience was the 78 World Qualifier. They had 3 events. One was in Santa Ana and 2 were in Northern California. The first one in Santa Ana, we all did pretty good, the Southern California riders. I had a good night. I think I finished tied for 4th. And I was on the cover. I was on the cover of that particular event. And then we moved up north to Northern California. And this is kind of the story about Porky, what happened. I had a first couple good races. It was a race competition, And my first race was against Bobby Schwartz. I ended up riding him on the pole. I ended up sort of passing Bobby and winning that race. I'm like, yeah, this is great. And so my next race was against the United States champion, Mike Bass. I was able to gate Mike and hold him off for the victory. And I'm like, I got 2 races and 6 points. I'm feeling pretty good. So the next race, it was against a bunch of Northern California riders. I didn't even know who these guys were. And I'm like, oh, I could beat these guys, and get 9 points and 3. I'm going to win this event. In my mind, I was just going to take all the races and sweep the program. So the first turn came in the third heat, and I was, I believe, in the lead. And from behind, I just got ran over. I just got ran by some riders, and I went down, and I hit hard. I mean, I just got smashed. And my left hand went between the fender and the back wheel of, I think, a motorcycle. And it injured my hand really bad. I thought I broke it. And that was the end of my night. My perfect score now was gone. And I thought I had a broken arm. I was going to go to the hospital. And I was sitting in the pits, kind of getting ready, getting my stuff together, getting ready to go. I think I went in the ambulance, or I had my pit guy drive me to the hospital. It's been a while ago. And I'm kind of getting my stuff together in the van to go to the hospital because I think I have a possible broken arm. And my night was done. It's over. And I was going in the van, getting ready to go in the van, and then all of a sudden I heard this loud boom. I go, what was that? And I looked up, and it was Porky McCabe. He went ahead and he was riding the outside of the track, and he hit some Bondo. Now, if you don't know what Bondo is, it's that stuff like putty they put on cars. They had a figure 8 sort of race with cars the night before, and some Bondo got left on the track. And for Porky's bad luck, he hit this Bondo and he crashed into the wall. It was a horrendous crash. I mean, it was loud. And Porky, unfortunately, went headfirst in the wall after hitting this Bondo, and he hit like a railroad tie. He went straight for it, and he severed his spinal cord. And we both went to the hospital at the same time. We're both in the same hospital. However, Porky's condition was way worse than mine, and I ended up not having a broken arm, thank gosh. And Porky just was messed up. I remember all the speed riders visiting Porky in the hospital, and that was just a tragic event, and it really affected all of us Southern California riders. The next night I did ride in Auburn, but I went around the track. I didn't even race. I just putted. My arm was still hurting pretty bad, but we're all just thinking about Porky, and it affected us. And that crash that happened that night, and it was in Northern California at the Sacramento Fairgrounds, it really affected my Speedway career. It made me think twice about everything, and it really sort of messed me up. And I decided I'd go to college and sort of get my own business and kind of, retire young and have a good life. And that's what I'm doing right now, having a good life. But Porky's crash definitely affected me, and it affected all of us Southern California riders who were there that night. Even though Porky and I weren't particularly very close friends, it really hurt me. I had this compassion for him. It just was so sad that one of our riders had fallen like that. And I just felt horrible. And about 2 or 3 months later, I found out Porky's address, and I went over to his home. I think it was Redondo Beach, I'm not sure. And I knocked on the door, and Porky answered the door in his wheelchair. And I just talked to him, and I said, hey, Porky, I just wanted to come and see you and sort of help you and see what I can do to be of help, to you. And he wasn't very kind to me. And he just said, I don't really need your help, and take off. And he slammed the door on my face. And I felt very sad because I could see the bitterness and the anger and the difficulties of the life of Porky McCabe. Porky had a really difficult life, but he worked hard to change that. Porky was a genius mind. He was a very smart guy. He continued fixing motors and motorcycles from his wheelchair. And he did custom wheelchairs for people who had wheelchairs. He would do custom work, making wheelchairs more nice for people. So Porky kept his mind going, and he did a great job. And a lot of his friends noticed that he would go to different motorsport events, and they would say hi to him. And Porky was still an avid motorsport follower, and he would go and hang out, and he had lots of friends. A few years ago, I think a nurse or something was putting Porky into his wheelchair, and Porky went ahead and went into the wheelchair, and I guess a bolt somehow was sticking out from the back of his wheelchair, and the nurse stuck his legs back into the bolt. Nobody knew about it because Porky was paralyzed. He couldn't feel the pain, right? And I guess the bolt caused an infection, and nobody kind of caught that fast, and it turned into gangrene. And it was a very severe situation, and eventually it killed Porky, that gangrene, and it was very sad. It was in October of 2008 that Porky finally passed away at age 57, far too young, and he had a difficult life, and what a tragic way to end a very difficult life. Rest in peace, Mr. Porky McCabe, number 154. He had a difficult life, and you know, life sometimes isn't fair, and life definitely was not fair with Porky, and he just had a very difficult time. His friends would say he always just had difficulties, and it's so sad, and we definitely appreciate the memory of Porky McCabe, his competitiveness. Porky was a good man. You know, a lot of people who are close to Porky, they said he was a great human being, and he was a great person. And we want to take this time to appreciate the memory of a very gifted motorcycle rider and a fallen warrior. And that is our friend, Mr. Porky McCabe, number 154. Rest in peace, Porky.
That's all, folks.